watching UNO with Dr. Ambrish Saxena.
Hello students, today is Saturday 23rd of November 2019. This week the government made announcement about disinvestment twice in Parliament. Initially, the government announced that in principle approval has been given to 28 public sector undertakings for the purpose of disinvestment, and then later it clarified that the government has already initiated the disinvestment process in 5 companies, 5 PSUs. Now, what are these 5 companies? These are Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited, Shipping Corporation of India, Container Corporation of India, then Tehri Hydroelectric Power Development Corporation, and then Northeast Electric Power Corporation. Now, if the government sells all its stakes in the first 3 companies which I mentioned, because these 3 companies are the listed companies, the government will be able to collect 84,000 crore rupees. Whereas the target for the current financial year 2019-20 is 1,05,000 crore rupees, and till now the government has been able to collect only 17,364 crore rupees. Now, why the government is going for such a huge disinvestment? This is basically for the reason of increasing fiscal deficit. What is fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit is in fact the gap between the expenditure and the revenue of the government. If we look into the figures of the fiscal deficit, it is at the moment 93% of the budget estimate for the current financial year, which in real terms is 6.52 trillion rupees, whereas the government has tried to keep it at 7.03 trillion rupees, and government wants to keep it only at 3.4% of the GDP. Now, how the government will achieve it, keeping in view not very good economic conditions in India? The industrial growth has contracted in the month of September by 4.3%, and this is consecutively in the second month, and this is the lowest since October 2011. And if we refer to the unreleased data of NSSO, then there is a drop in consumer spending, which is the lowest during the last 4 decades. And the output of the 8 core infrastructure sectors has contracted by 5.2%, which is the lowest in the last 14 years. And the government is well aware of this fact and is taking measures to control this whole problem. And the government for this reason only slashed the corporate tax, but that proved counterproductive because the revenue dropped. Now, the government is planning to collect the gross revenue of 24.6 lakh crore rupees, but it appears difficult because last year the government had a shortfall by 8.6% of the total gross tax collection. Now, the government is planning to make some revenue collection by selling the 5G spectrum to telecom company, and it has already fixed a base price for this, that is 5.7 trillion rupees. But this again is difficult for the reason that telecom companies are already under pressure, whether it's Vodafone or Airtel, they are in losses. Even Jio is not in a very good condition, and only 2 days back the government has announced that the dues which are there on these telecom companies, some more time is to be given for that payment with regard to the spectrum fee. So how this disinvestment process will move, only the time will tell. Now moving on to another story, you all would have heard about Rohingya. Rohingya is a minority Muslim community in the Rakhine province of Myanmar, and because of persecution they have fled in large numbers to India and Bangladesh. So one important story appeared in the global media that their case is now to be heard by International Court of Justice. How it happened? Gambia, which is a Western African country, it has moved to International Court of Justice pleading that there is large-scale genocide happening of Rohingyas. They are being raped and gang raped, and their condition is really bad. And since the time their persecution is started in the year 2016, about 7 lakh Rohingya refugees have fled their country. So the petition was filed in the court on 11th of November, and only one day back the court decided the date of 10th of December to start the hearing in this issue. Now, why Gambia has initiated this whole process? Because it is a member of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and as its vice president announced yesterday, that though we are a small country, we are a big voice as far as human rights violations are concerned, whether in this continent or in any other part of the globe. Now, another interesting aspect of this whole story is that Myanmar has nominated its leader Aung San Suu Kyi to defend the country in the International Court of Justice. Aung San Suu Kyi has been fighting for decades against the military regime of that country. She was in house arrest for years, and she is known as a face for democratic values and against human rights violations, and that is why the Nobel Committee selected her for Nobel Peace Prize in the year 1993. In 2010, Aung San Suu Kyi was released from the house arrest, and in 2015 she led her party to victory in the first open elections in Myanmar. But then, since she has been debarred from holding any public office, she could not assume herself any position, but her party is in power in Myanmar. But since then, her attitude has completely changed. She has not uttered a word against the military regime since that time. And on the issue of Rohingyas also, she has never admitted that the discrimination is happening against them in Myanmar, and now she is going to Hague in the International Court of Justice to defend her country. So it seems really ironical. That is all in today's edition.